This video is for anybody whose North Star is authenticity and honesty. If you're like really oriented towards truth, then I hope that these ideas that I'm gonna tell you, I hope they bridge some gaps and give you some epiphanies, you know, some light bulb moments. So there are a lot of different ways you can approach the world, and there are different value systems. Some people value truth, authenticity, because they want to be themselves. They want the freedom of being who they are, and having to play a role, having to comply to standards is actually disempowering in a very real way. It's like they feel it in an embodied way when they're out of alignment with their truth and with who they are. And so the rewards that come with compliance don't justify the cost of being out of center. I hope that makes sense. There are other people, however, and this isn't a judgment, this is just an observation. I'm not saying they're wrong, but there are other people who do find life fulfilling. They find that trade worth it, to sacrifice their alignment for the sake of rewards and acquisitions and victory, right? So those are people who I think would be oriented towards accomplishment and what I would call dominance. That's kind of how I frame it, is their North Star is dominance and superiority. They want achievement. They tend to identify as winners, or as, if they don't identify as winners explicitly, they definitely disidentify as a loser. That's like a phobia almost, is to be in the inferior position, right? And so perhaps you're somebody, and our culture biases towards that, by the way. Our culture biases towards accomplishment. Social conditioning wants you on the rat race. That's the rat race towards achievement and dominance, because they want you running away from inferiority and running towards victory. But they don't want you necessarily in alignment with yourself. Capitalism doesn't really benefit from people who are grounded in themselves and don't fear lacking and don't desire moving forward, right? And so this is where spiritual practices kind of offer you liberation, is ideally they want you sitting within yourself, not coming or going away from anything, but just like at peace. Now, if you're somebody who does value authenticity, that is, your North Star is truth, you have to be gracious with yourself, especially if you've moved into this over time, which is likely the case. Because of social conditioning, you still have that association of victory good, losing bad, right? You're still invested in that framework. And so even if you're somebody who's moving towards authenticity, you'll still feel that sting of shame and guilt and just negativity. I'm not a big fan of that word, but you'll still feel the negative reaction from your body when you're not in victory and when you're in an inferior position, because of just how you've been conditioned. Now, that's going to fade over time, especially if you're aware of it, especially after a video like this. If like you're feeling the light bulbs clicking and what I'm saying is resonating with you, then this is gonna help your process of what we call extinction. And extinction is when your body, a conditioned response, starts to gradually weaken or fall away completely. It's that process. So you'll be in a position where you lose and you'll remember, oh, but I'm still me and this doesn't define me. Right. Even if your body hasn't caught up to it yet, the fact that your mind is ahead of it, it's going to bring your body forward, and eventually you'll get to the point to where losses don't mean anything on your sense of self-worth or your identity. But there are some people out there who they're not even aware that that kind of freedom is there. They think that winning is inherently good and losing is inherently bad, and they never question that association nor the quality of their connection to it, because there is such a thing as coming out of that framework completely, to where you're not greater than yourself when you win, and you're not less than yourself when you lose. You're always you, and that's where your power is. And what I found too, what's really interesting about that is, it seems to me like winners actually subordinate themselves to people who have that kind of energy, who have that kind of stature, because they sense a freedom from outcome and a freedom that they yearn for, that they think that they can get from winning. Like, if I just get enough wins, if I just succeed at a big enough scale, they think that that's going to lead them to that liberation, but that's actually not the case. You have to choose. You have to cultivate that kind of freedom. You have to actually observe the game, understand your positioning within it, and then choose to get out of it. Choose to say, no, I'm not going to sacrifice myself. I'm not going to identify with my position in these circumstances. I'm going to identify with the essence of who I am and my truth. The main principle that I wanted to articulate to you is, there is a place you can get to where winning and losing no longer touch your essence, no longer touch your self-worth. And the process of getting away from feeling those feelings when you do lose, it's time and it's awareness. This is the last bit I want to add, and I'll make a separate video on this, because I think most people, if they are making a transition from social status and realizing they actually align more with authenticity, they'll often ask, well, if I'm not afraid of losing and I don't feel compelled to win, then why would I do anything at all? And the reason why is because you choose to, because you want to, because it's fun, because it's an expression. It's catharsis in using your capacities. And that catharsis, that pleasurable feeling of exerting yourself and applying yourself, that is independent of victory. Like, you can have that without having to win. You can have that even when you lose. You can have that just in the thing itself. That's a part of being like process oriented. You move away from being outcome driven to being process oriented. You're doing the thing strictly for the sake of doing the thing. And there's a freedom in that. But we'll make a separate video on that and I'll talk about it. This is some really deep stuff. And if this is aligning with you, talk to me. Tell me in the comment section how it's landing and what kind of experiences maybe you're connecting it to.